Yeah, a very good afternoon to you. I think it's very much the Gulf is facing a dangerous new phase of the crisis, with limited truce agreed last month, now clearly under severe strain here. Iranian officials have reported new explosions in the south of the country following earlier strikes on dozens of targets, although Washington has denied responsibility for some of the latest blasts. And a reminder of how opaque and contested the information environment has become here in the region. As we know, the latest flare-up began when 3 commercial vessels were attacked in the Strait of Hormuz in recent days, after Iran accused them of attempting to transit without seeking approval. In response, the US launched a major wave of strikes on Iranian soil, first hitting coastal cities along the Gulf and then escalating to wider region on Thursday morning. And Iran has answered with missiles and drones attacks in recent days across the Gulf. Neighbouring countries here, including Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, and indeed beyond that in Jordan, signaling that they are really prepared to widen confrontation here beyond the immediate waters of Hormuz. And that escalation comes weeks after Washington and Tehran signed that memorandum of understanding to intend to end this war and restore secure passage through the Strait of Hormuz. And the deal tasked Iran with demining and helping ensure navigation and allowing ships to pass freely for those 60 days. But of course, we're seeing now potential tolls on the horizon for those vessels. Conflicting interpretations of the MOU are now feeding into the crisis here in the Gulf. Iranian media and officials talk of asserting control over the route, while the US Central Command has publicly rejected any claim that Iran controls Hormuz or can dictate where vessels sail. And strategically, the episode really underlines Iran's leverage here in the Gulf. It does not need to project power far afield. Relatively minor disruption around Hormuz can create this outsized problem for the United States, Israel, and energy-dependent economies worldwide. And that asymmetry is exactly what makes this confrontation so hard to determine. Analysts warn that President Trump has launched what he has launched here in the Gulf is opening Pandora's box for a forever war here in the Middle East, which could see cycles of retaliation continue.
Fiona, are commercial vessels continuing to transit the Strait of Hormuz, or have shipping companies changed their operations because of the security situation?
Yeah, commercial traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has not ceased altogether, but it has been dramatically reduced. Before the war erupted in late February, roughly 130 vessels a day transited the strait, one of the world's most important energy choke points. And this week, maritime data and intelligence platforms report that visible crossings have collapsed. Only 5 vessels were tracked on Wednesday and into early Thursday, and that compares to 45 on Monday, highlighting just how quickly operations have pulled back in the face of these renewed attacks. US coordinated the southern corridor off Oman that President Trump has deemed a safe corridor has been badly affected. According to Lloyd's List Intelligence, there's been no vessels above 100 DWT in that lane, and those that have transited have turned off their AIS system, meaning that they've gone dark with the AIS disabled. So they are harder for the IRGC to monitor. But the UK MTO, which helps coordinate advice to shipping companies, say the current levels reflect a cautious posture here in the Gulf among those transporting the likes of LNG and oil worldwide. And we've seen LSEG report that at least 5 LNG tankers have entered the strait in recent days, including a gas log Shanghai and several others linked to Qatar Energy. But there is real concern here, given those attacks that we saw on Monday, where tankers, including a Qatari tanker, a Saudi tanker, came under attack. And that is the real concern here. The US Central Command is keen to stress that the strait is not closed. It says US forces have facilitated the safe passage of over 800 commercial vessels carrying nearly 380 million barrels since early May. So they're arguing that shipping continues to move safely despite Iran claiming to the contrary. But taken together, the data points to a significant dislocation. Many shipping companies are looking at rerouting out of other areas. We're looking at other pipelines like the one created here in the UAE to transit through Fujairah as well. But the concern among maritime and energy analysts is that there is these start-stop dynamics persisting. It may lead to bigger issues for operators and indeed for the global economy, not just here in the Gulf. We've seen prices really fluctuate, but of course we've seen that on the global market with oil prices really fluctuating in recent days, coming back up to the upper $70 a barrel mark, and that is going to be a real concern here.
Qatar, Pakistan and other regional mediators making any fresh diplomatic efforts to help reduce tensions and prevent further escalation?
Yes, even as the military confrontation has intensified in recent days, diplomatic channels remain active, with Qatar and Pakistan playing prominent roles alongside other regional actors such as Egypt. And these states are continuing efforts behind the scenes to persuade both Washington and Tehran to pull back from the tit-for-tat strikes that have again defined this week's events, and to keep the framework of the June Memorandum of Understanding intact. Last week, the United States and Iran concluded a round of indirect talks in Doha, and the two delegations did not meet face-to-face. Tehran's negotiators again refusing such direct contact, but they spent 2 days discussing the maritime traffic in the Strait of Hormuz and the unfreezing of Iranian funds, both central issues under the interim agreement. And Qatar's Foreign Ministry described positive progress on aspects of the Memorandum of Understanding and said the talks were building on the outcomes of the summit in Switzerland that helped shape the ceasefire that's currently in place. The next meeting is expected to take place after the mourning period for Iran's late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was buried yesterday, although no firm dates have been publicly confirmed by Pakistan or indeed Qatar. Pakistan, for its part, has been working in tandem with Qatar, drawing on its ties with both Washington and Tehran to encourage both to continue engagement. And we've also seen the likes of Turkey and Egypt involved in consultations. So we really are seeing a full push by Qatar from Doha and indeed from Pakistan in Islamabad, officials there pushing for Tehran and Washington to really step up negotiations. But given the current situation, those tit-for-tat strikes again this week, renewed strikes on both sides, there is real concern here. The perspective of potentially seeing any sort of de-escalation is very rare, I think, among many analysts.
Finally, Fiona, so what is the mood in Dubai and other Gulf countries as concerns over regional security continue to grow indeed?
Yeah, look, the mood here is one of wariness. I think there's a lot of concern given the fact that we've seen those renewed attacks on Bahrain and Kuwait over the past week, and indeed before that we saw attacks in the last couple of weeks on our neighbours here in the Gulf. And yesterday we did see that retaliation from the IRGC at US bases here in the region expand into Qatar. That's really significant here. That is the first time we've seen Qatar struck in many months. We've also seen, I've got colleagues there in Qatar who tell me that alerts sounded in the middle of the night, a real shock to our neighbours here in the Gulf. But you know, I have to say the mood here in Dubai is one of optimism. People want to get back to normal. People want to continue with their lives. Businesses are operating as normal. But of course, when you have war on your doorstep like we do, even though we're in the midst of this a temporary ceasefire. I think this week has just proved that anything can happen. And of course, the UAE originally was the main target of Iranian aggression, and thankfully that has ceased. But seeing our neighbours here in the Gulf being continued to be targeted is raising concerns among leaders here, not just in Dubai, but of course Abu Dhabi and the wider UAE government of, where will this war end and how can peace be brought to the region?
Thank you, Fiona.